Good evening and welcome to Driver's Ed. I think I made a mistake. I think when I set up tonight's class, I actually said it was going to be at 7:35. Well, no, it's 8 o'clock, our normal time. But if people have been waiting patiently for me to hit the go button, here I am. I have to set up each night's class scheduled, send it to YouTube. That's why we've got a little bit of a problem. So if you looked at class being at 7:35, not the case. So I'll wait for people to sign in so I have an idea of who's here. So tonight's class is always an interesting class in the middle of summer, because we're going to be talking about weather that we're not going to encounter for another probably 4 or 5 months. So you have to use your creative imagination of how you're going to respond to some of these situations. Just like what we did with driving emergencies, we're going to take you through some bad weather situations that you may never encounter, but if you do, you're going to know exactly what to do. So let me kind of get right into the PowerPoint that we're going to use. Whoop. Why did that happen? There we go. Oh, hold on here. I gotta drop in something, so you've got to bear with me. Actually, I think I know what I'm going to do. No. So, I lost my PowerPoint. So let me get here. There we go. Now we're in business. So let's get right into tonight's class. All right, when you take a look at this picture, this was taken from the Boston Globe probably about 5 to 6 years ago. It says, "What a mess." If you were to count all the vehicles that were piled into one another there's probably, I think we counted one time, there was 8 or 9. We can see that there are probably at least 6 or 7 different tractor trailers. So this is I-95 just outside of Foxborough Stadium. You have to ask yourself, why did this happen? Could it been preventable? Okay, why do we have such massive catastrophes in the wintertime with other cars? So I want you to write this down in your notes. All major crashes in the winter. We know that it's a traction problem. We know that, okay? So we know that going in to driving in snow, ice, and sleet. But it can be broken down into 2 distinct reasons. 1, people were going too fast. Just because the speed limit is 55, 65, I don't care what the number is posted in the best of weather. We're talking about bad weather now. I want you to understand that there comes a tipping point when you're going to start to lose control. The problem for most drivers is they don't know how to find that tipping point. We'll get back to that in a moment. The second thing I want you to write down is following distance. People follow way too close. In bad weather like this, you should be at least 4 or 5 seconds away from everybody. You need extra time, which is going to create extra distance in order to avoid people that are slipping and sliding. It's a fact. It's going to happen. When you drive in bad weather, you're going to lose traction. No matter what you do, put on great tires, snow tires, you're going to start losing control. But if your speed is slow enough, if your following distance is great enough, you will be able to handle, I would say, 90 to 95% of your bad weather driving conditions. But most people aren't willing to drop their speed down. So let me show you a little clip. Now, they wanted you to buy a DVD. I wasn't going to buy a DVD, but I thought the intro to this video was kind of cool. So let's take a look at black ice.
An expressway slick with ice, black ice, thin, nearly invisible to drivers. The ice has caused a car to crash in the fast lane. Trooper Jeff Oken parks his cruiser to prevent a pileup. But behind him, drivers are approaching way too fast.
Boy, I'm having problems with this. Let's see if this works. I still am. How come? All right, you got to bear with me one more time. I have lost my PowerPoint. This program is giving me fits. All right, let's see if that works. The reason that was a problem for that person in the video was he was going way too fast. He wasn't able to change his position, and that's why he was going to hit the police officer. So I want you to write down, winter weather has 3 different types of winter weather, and each one has its special problems. So by far, the worst type of winter weather is driving in ice. The second type of winter weather we're going to talk about is sleet. And then the last is snow. So in the winter, we have ice, sleet, and snow. Ice the worst, then sleet, and then there are 2 types of snow that we have to worry about. Now, let's take a look at other people having a little bit of a problem with driving in bad weather. So you get an idea of what is happening. definitely people haven't been trained how to drive in bad weather. They're going too fast and they're having issues. Now, I'm having issues with this PowerPoint. I do not know why it's not allowing me to keep it. I apologize. I'm going to have to try it one more time. Let me lock this in. Hopefully, I will not have an issue with this again. So I want you to write a few things down about ice. Oh, I like this sign. Drivers ignoring winter conditions may be subject to natural selection. That is so true. We're going to weed out the bad drivers come November. The end of November, when we start getting a little bit of black ice, we're going to find out who really paid attention in driver's ed, who basically has learned something, and those that haven't. So you may think that driving in the winter is you're going to pick up naturally. No, you have to study. You got to know before you go into the winter season. So let's write things down that's going to make you a better driver. First thing, ice is found usually off to the right side of the road. Now, our roadways are built two ways. One way we build our roads, higher at the yellow line, lower at the white line. We call that a crowned roadway, so that if you were to put a marble on the yellow line, it should roll towards the right side of the road. If you put it too close to the left, it would go over to the left side. So it's higher at the yellow line, slopes down to the right. The other way we build our roadways is we have them banked, which the whole roadway from one side to the other, it goes on one slanting degree. So on a right-hand turn, it's going to be low on the right side, high on the left. And then when you make a left-hand turn, it's going to be high on the right and low on the left. That way water is draining. So ice is usually found around the white edge line. Very seldom do we find black ice forming near the center of the road. And ice is only a traction problem. Of all the winter weather, ice is only a traction problem. It's not a vision problem. You're still going to be able to see quite well. Now, where should you drive on the road? You should stay away from the right side. So you're going to be left of center. Hopefully that's where other people have been driving, and you're going to stay in there, what we call tire tracks in the wintertime. And when they drive in the rain, we call them tire wipes. So that's where you're going to place your vehicle. Now, here's the key. So how fast do we drive if we know there's ice on the road? Less than 15 miles per hour. Write that down. When you know that there's ice on the roadway, you should be going 10 to 15 miles per hour. Probably closer to 10 than 15. Think of the time that you've stepped out on ice and you have warm shoes. The soles of your shoes are warm because you were inside. It's pretty slippery. You've probably tried to walk on walkways on your shoes, and you know how difficult it is. Well, it's going to be the same thing with your car and your tires. The warmer your tires are in contact with anything that is frozen or cold is going to cause you to have some issues with traction. So go much slower. The other thing that I want you to remember, I had you write down that airbags only deploy at 15 miles per hour or higher. So if you're going lower than 15, if you were to hit another car, the back end of a vehicle, for one, you're going to do very little bit of damage because your speed's so slow. But the other thing is your airbag's not going to come out. So the slower you go, the better traction you're going to have, less damage to the vehicle, airbags won't come out. Now, write down in your notes, November, December, so the end of November into December, and late February into March are the 2 times a year where you find black ice more readily, meaning that we haven't gotten into the real heavy snow season the end of November usually. So we're going to have days where we have wet weather, but overnight the temperatures drop below the freezing point. So you're going to wake up in the morning and you're not going to realize it is frozen. There's black ice on the way to school, and that's where you're going to have your issues. Same thing. February, March, the roads start to warm up because we've got warmer days. It's getting a little bit lighter. So we get some thawing of the snow. It will puddle during the day, but at night it will freeze over. You get up in the morning to go to school. once again, you're hitting black ice. So the term black ice comes from is that the water freezes so hard, and because the water level is so low, it takes on the resemblance of the color of the pavement. Hence the name black ice. Okay, usually when ice gets a little bit thicker, it takes more of a whitish, grayish tint to it, and you should be able to see it. Now, the next type of, that's a thin layer of ice, or actually sleet. Okay, the sleet formed on the license plate, on the speed limit sign, and as it started to warm up during the day, it's just started to slip on down the sign. So that's what's going to be on the pavement, by the way. That's what you're going to be driving on. The other thing I want you to write down is bridges will always freeze first. Now, this was in Worcester, Massachusetts. Because you got air circulation, the cold air is circulating below the bridge, above the bridge. When we make a bridge, it's usually made out of metal, and then we put layers of pavement on top of it. So it is going to hold that cold temperature a little bit easier, and it's going to be affected by the cold temperatures sooner, like maybe mid-November, early November, rather than late November on a regular roadway that has thermal properties from the ground. So sleet, how does it differ from ice? It is still ice, but it's coming down from above, which gives us the problem of vision. So it's a traction problem and a vision problem. If you've ever driven a car or been in a vehicle that has had sleet coming down, frozen rain, it attaches to the vehicle, you become encased in that shell of ice. Now, if you've got your wipers going, your windshield wipers going, defroster going, it's going to clear the front windshield and maybe a little bit off to the side where your side mirror is. But where you're looking out, next to where your head is, on the driver's side window, you probably are going to still have some remains of ice because the defroster is not going to be able to heat up that driver's side window entirely. It's just that, front edge pocket will probably get cleared. So where do you drive? The exact same place you do for ice. Always look for where tires have gone before you. Try to make your tires go exactly in those tracks, because the cars in front of you have either thawed out that area, as in sleet, or in snow, it will have pushed the snow away, and that's going to give you more contact with the roadway. Now, the speed limit in sleet can be a little bit higher than ice. You may want to cut your speed in half. So 20, 10, 30, 15, 40, 20. But what I usually say is look at the speed of the cars in front of you, because they're going to be driving where you're going to be in the next couple seconds. If you gauge their speed to be the same as yours, and they're losing contact with the road, let's say the speed limit's 30 and they're going 22, the low 20s. But you look up ahead 100, 150 feet and you can see, they're slipping, they're sliding. Well, guess what? You're going to be there in about 4 seconds. Why are you going to try to do the same thing at 22, 23 miles per hour? Go slower, go 18 or 19. And the weight of your vehicle is going to make a difference. I should say that. What you're driving for a vehicle will make a difference. So when I say, there's a tipping point, yeah, for most cars. But also depending on the weight of your vehicle, whether you've got good tires on or winter tires, four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, it does play a huge factor in your contact with the road and how you're going to be able to drive. So ice and sleet, always side on precaution and go lower and then work your way up in your speed, rather than going fast and then having to bring it back down a little bit. The worst type of snow. So let's talk about snow now. There are two types of snow that you're going to be driving in. Wet snow and dry snow. And can you imagine which one is the worst? Yes, wet. So write down in your notes. Just at freezing point at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that is when snow is going to probably be its worst, because it gets stuck in the tread of your tire. So your tire is rotating and it's just not able to push out and get rid of what you've been driving over. So your tire becomes like a slick, like a race car tire, and you just keep on sliding. This is why race car drivers can spin their wheels so easily. Dry snow gets pushed away. It doesn't get caught in your tire tread. And by the way, the only reason why there's tire tread on a tire is because of bad weather. So remember that. So the more tread you have, depth, the better off you're going to be driving in bad weather. So driving in snow will be like sleet. It will be a traction problem as well as a vision problem. But I don't think it's going to be that much of a traction problem. Vision is where we usually have problems with snow, because we feel confident in our driving. The car seems to be gripping the road okay. And then all of a sudden we look to the right, look to the left, and snow has started to stick to the side of the car. And we can't see when we make a blind spot check. We can't see when we come to an intersection. And people start to make guesses and gambles when they pull out into traffic. Wrong move. Okay? And we're going to talk about what you should keep in your car, but make sure that you always keep your car clear of snow. The top of the vehicle, the hood, the roof, the trunk. You don't want any snow slipping, sliding, coming up onto the windshield at any point. At any point. And where should you drive? You should always drive in those tire tracks. Okay? And the speed, probably cut it. In dry snow, you could pretty much almost drive the speed limit in dry snow. Maybe 5 miles below. And wet snow, drop it 10, maybe 15 if it's really bad. But remember, too, have the roads been treated with salt or sand? Have the roads been plowed? That is a big bearing on what you look down the road and determining how fast you're going to go. So when it comes to speed, I want you to disregard speed limits. Okay, so make sure you write that down. In all bad weather, speed limits are irrelevant, because we're not talking about the maximum of what you can drive. Now we're really kind of getting down into the bare bones of safety. Of you've got to be able to analyze the road and say, at what speed can I get to where I want to go safely? And you have to change. You've got to change your speed to be able to get to where you want to go safely. Now, your speed that you go may be different than the people behind you or in front of you. But don't let them dictate what you do behind the wheel of the car. You've got to do what you think is safe, what is best for you to get you to where you want to go. And I think, personally, be careful when you get your license and you're going to have the next 3 or 4 months of good weather, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's the snow, there's the sleet. Don't do long drives. Get a feel for it. Get a taste of what it really is like to gauge whether you're in control or not. And going to parking lots is a cool thing to do. Going into back roads and kind of getting a feel for your car losing control and then trying to regain control. That's really important. The last bullet that I have here is, what if I become stuck in snow and you can't get out? Okay, let's talk about a couple things. So let me get out of here. Let's see if this works. We've already talked about AAA. I'm a firm believer in AAA. So for one, let's talk about the thing that's going to get you out of a lot of trouble, okay? Your phone. So let's talk about your phone, okay? Always make sure that your phone is fully charged when you drive in bad weather, because the worst thing for you to do is to get stuck in a snowstorm and you're trying to call your parents and your phone is dead, all right? So let's talk about parents and driving in bad weather, okay? I have 3 children. It's very important that they knew that there are 3 things that I expected when they were driving in bad weather. So I want you to write these down. Not in a textbook, not in a manual. This is Mr. Toll giving you some advice that your parents are going to appreciate when you drive in bad weather. Number one, always tell your parents where you are. Okay? Very important. Now, it could be just a freak snowstorm. You went to the movies, and all of a sudden it's snowing when you get out. Looks like people are having a problem driving on the roadway. Your parents should know where you are. Second thing, who's with you? There's nothing worse for a parent to get a phone call and says, is my son with your son? I don't know. Okay, you should know, okay, that your parents may be getting phone calls. So one, as I said before, tell them where you are, who's in the vehicle with you, and basically when you're coming home, what routes that you're taking. Think about it. If your parents know that you're in the car and you're out with friends, they don't know where you are. Now, yes, with GPS, now with computers, we can kind of look at track phones of where they are. But it's better for your parents to know, I'm taking the Spalding Turnpike. I'm getting off on exit 8. I've got 2 friends with me. I'm taking Mark home first. I'm taking Billy home second. So if your parents had to go out on the road to find out where you're located because you're stuck, they're going to probably be more successful knowing the route that you took. Okay, so you got that? Call them where you are, who's with you, and basically not only what route you're taking, but when you're going to leave. Okay, Dad, the movie's done. It's 10:20. It's pretty bad here in Newington. It's going to probably take me an extra 20 minutes. Okay, this is the route that I'm taking. Mark, Billy, boom. Okay, I'm pretty cool with that. I think your parents will be really impressed if you go over that. Let me get out of this for a second. I've got my desk here in front of me, all right? So my desk is right here. If you get stuck in a snowstorm and you have someone that's going to help get your car out, most people think about, I'm going to get up from my chair here for a minute. Most people think that pushing from behind a vehicle is a smart thing to do. It's not, okay? Because at any point, if you put the car in reverse, they're going to run you over, okay? So what I want you to do, and I'm going to get away from the mic for a minute, is go over to the side of the vehicle and push from the side, okay? Now, write down the term rocking the car. Rocking the vehicle is where you are stuck. The person that's driving puts the car in drive. You go forward as far as you can and then put it in reverse, and the car goes backwards. Then put it in drive, it goes forward. Put it in reverse, then it goes backwards. And eventually, you're going to get out of that rut that you're in. And remember, the more you spin your tires, the more likelihood you're going to dig that hole a little bit deeper. So anything like sand, some people put kitty litter in the back of their vehicle. People put boards. Some people put pieces of carpet, anything that's going to get jammed under the tire so your tire can go up over it. This is what I use. These are called traction mats. So let me get one out. They're heavy. I mean, they're brutal. Okay, these are traction mats. So what happens is that you open these things up. Let me do one. I've got 2 of them so they could go under. So let me open this up. There. So you take this and you put this under your tire. So your tire will grab a hold of it. You can see that there's some little spikes. Okay, it's going to go right up onto those spikes. It won't puncture a tire, okay, but it will actually get caught in the grooves of your tread, and you put that under the tire, and your tire will pull it right underneath, and then you drive right up on top of that. So, I've got 2 of these. So if you get really stuck, put them under both tires. So I'll take care of that later. But those are traction mats. Very, very helpful. So be very careful when you're pushing somebody out of snow. Extreme snow conditions. What does this picture tell you? Okay, that they had a ton of snow, right? Okay, it looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Well, guess what? It's not real. Yeah, it's Photoshop. But it's supposed to give you an illusion that you're going to be driving and you're not going to be able to see things very well. Let me show you a picture that is real. This is a real picture. This is from the town that my son-in-law is from, up in Maine. And a tractor trailer cab is about 8 feet to 9 feet tall. So you can look over to the left where the truck is. It is higher than the cab of the truck. That is a good probably 9 to 10 feet. That is high. And the reason why I wanted to show you this picture is, what are you going to do when you get to the end of the road and there's an intersection, a traffic light, or a stop sign? You're not going to see to the left or the right very well. So remember, write this down. You're stopping where you think the line is. You can see there's some snow on the ground. You're not going to see the snow very well. I mean, the lines very well because of the snow. So you do your legal stop, and then you inch out 6 inches at a time to do your safety stops so people will be able to see you. That's how you handle this situation. So what are some of the safe practices that we can follow for winter driving? I already mentioned, get a feel for the road. Go to a parking lot. Now, don't create havoc where a police officer is going to, pull into the parking lot and ask you what you're doing because you're going around in circles, multiple times. But I would recommend going, 15, 20 miles per hour, hit the brakes real hard, see what the ABS, anti-lock braking system, feels like. Make a sharp turn to the right, make one to the left. If the car starts to spin out, can you get control of it? So kind of practice, what fishtailing. We talked about how the back end slides out. You always try to keep your back end in front of your front end. So if the car slides to the right, you turn to the right. If the car slides to the left, you turn to the left. So practice that. Make sure that it's good. Technique. So when it does happen for real, you'll be able to handle it. And I will tell you, one of the scariest moments that I ever had with a student is that we were in downtown Dover and we were coming around a corner and we spun the vehicle, the driver's ed car, right around. I've done this twice with students. Was it on purpose? It just happened. Hit a patch at the right speed, at the right time, and we just did like almost a 360. It is pretty scary. You got to remember, there comes a point when your car starts to slide out that you're not going to be able to get control of it again. So you've got to know is when I don't have control anymore, and then basically when I don't have control, how do I brace myself? How do I get ready for possible impact? How can I minimize damage? That's what you've got to be thinking about. But I don't do that on purpose on main roads. I used to like to put the car in skids on back roads and parking lots on students, but I can't do that in the driver's ed vehicle that I have right now. Make sure your tires are all-weather radial tires or winter tires. Make sure they're not worn. So in November, you're always going to do a pre-check around your vehicle. Go into the trunk. Make sure you've got everything that you need. Because if you keep on putting it off and saying, oh, it's not cold enough yet, we're not going to get snow, it's not going to happen. Well, it's going to happen. And you're going to wish that you had the scraper. You're going to wish that you had the shovel, you had the sand, you had changed your tires. So do it early. Do it early rather than later. So keep your vehicle in good driving condition. So that's kind of like what I just alluded to with checking your trunk and making sure everything that you've got in it is what you need. Now, there's a big debate in a lot of driver's ed circles and automotive circles about warming up your vehicle. So I'll give you my take. Take it for what it's worth. I'm a firm believer that the colder the temperature, the longer you warm it up. I think beginning at around the mid-30s, so 35. We're not at 32 where freezing is, but 35, mid-30s. Before you go to school, run out, start the car for at least 5 minutes, preferably 10. If you have an auto start, set it from the house. Turn it on. What you're trying to do, two things. One, make it an enjoyable experience with driving where it's warm inside. Two, is that your car and your engine, you have multiple types of fluid. You've got oil, you've got power steering, you've got power brake fluid, you've got antifreeze. Anything that is a liquid, it will not freeze solid but it does get kind of jelly-like. We call it congeal, right? So you want to make sure that that fluid is as loose as it possibly can be. You don't want it, and when it gets to be like below zero, you want to warm it up for, 15, 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes. And I will tell you, there's going to come a time in your life when you get into a cold car and you go down the road to use the brakes, and you go to use the brakes, and they don't work like they normally do. And you're going to go, what is wrong with my brakes? It's because your car was not warmed up correctly. So remember that, okay? So warm it up. Look for danger spots on the road. We're talking about roads that don't have sunlight penetrating through the trees. These are areas that have a lot of pine trees. So when you get the thawing of the snow and the icing, like in November, December, or February, March, this is when the black ice is going to happen, and it's going to probably be around parts of the road that don't get the full sunlight. Carbon monoxide poisoning is real. Don't think that this is something that doesn't happen that often. It does. And it happens in the wintertime because we don't clear snow away from the tailpipe. We warm the car up, so when we get into the vehicle, there is already some of this carbon monoxide fumes inside the vehicle. If you have an older car or a car that has a bad exhaust system, these fumes, write this down, will start to linger underneath your vehicle at stop signs, traffic lights, and if you're in a mall just idling and waiting, maybe on your phone for 5 or 10 minutes. These fumes are leaking into your vehicle. And if they get extremely bad, you could die from them. And I don't think I have it into this PowerPoint. I wish that I had put it in. Well, this is about warming up your car. But I had an article, and I don't know why I didn't put it in, but it was in Massachusetts of a dad and his son. They had parked their car on the side of the road, and they were shoveling it out. Because in Massachusetts, you gotta clear the snow out around your vehicle because the plows kind of plow you in. Well, the son got tired shoveling, so the dad said, "We'll get into the car." Well, he had started the vehicle to warm it up and to defrost the windows. His son literally, and I'll try to find the article for tomorrow, was only in the vehicle, I believe, for 15, 20 minutes, and he passed away. And he was only like 10 years old. Okay? The dad would probably looked at him lying down thinking he's just sleeping because he's tired. But he was getting lulled to sleep by that poison. So make sure that you crack the windows. Make sure that there is some circulation of fresh air that's coming into your vehicle in these situations. Let's take a look. This was ice, and I never showed this to you. So let me show you the thing on ice.
There's also ice.
Ice on a roadway isn't like ice in a glass of water. You don't necessarily see it. If it's a sunny day, you can have glare on the road and it just appears that the roadway is wet when actually there is ice on the road, and it can catch you by surprise.
If you have to drive on ice, slow down to a crawl. When it's freezing or near freezing, be extra careful on bridges, overpasses, and streets shaded by trees or buildings. These areas tend to freeze before the rest of the roadway, and they're the last to thaw out. If it's icy and you approach a curve, slow down before you get to the curve. If you suddenly slow down or speed up while turning, you will go into a skid. Like ice, snow can be deceptive too.
Once it starts to pack down and then you have temperature changes where it melts some, freezes, melts some, freezes, then you end up with that icy condition again. And yes, you can see it, but it can still be very deceptive in terms of how slippery it'll actually be.
Again, it's essential to slow down. If you're driving in packed snow, cut your speed to half of what you'd normally drive. To increase traction, use snow tires or tire chains placed over the tire tread.
Whether you're driving in snow or rain, the American Automobile Association gives 7 tips for safer driving.
1. Prepare in advance. Clean your windows and lights. Check the tread and pressure of your tires. Check your windshield wipers, headlights, and other equipment to make sure they're in good working order. 2. Be extra careful
Drive slower and allow extra space between your car and others.
3. Drive in the tracks of the vehicle in front of you.
Since those tracks are drier than the surrounding pavement, they provide better traction. 4. Give plenty of advance notice to other drivers. If you plan to turn or slow down, let other drivers know early enough so that they have time to react safely. 5. Be alert. Watch for pedestrians trying to get out of the weather. 6. Keep your low beam headlights on. This helps you to see better and helps others to see you. And 7. Ease your way into turns or curves, avoiding any sudden starts and stops. A few tips for when you and bad weather meet out on the highway.
So those are good tips to follow for driving in winter weather. Now, what most states have are what they call winter weather schools. So I want you to write this down. I should probably make a copy of the pamphlet. I'll see if I can find it. I'll try to do an image of it and put it on, because I don't know if we're going to get through everything tonight. We may have a little bit of a cleanup of this subject tomorrow before we get into alcohol, I believe is what we're getting into next. But what I want you to write down is that if you want to get a discount on your insurance, if you enroll in a winter weather school, it's not as long as driver's ed, so you're not doing 10 hours of driving. You're not going to be in classroom for 30 hours. It's like a one-day event, maybe for 4 or 5 hours. They bring you in and kind of talk about some of the things that I'm mentioning, but they get a little bit more in depth, and then they take you out to what they call a skid school. And they take you out on a track, and they make you go around corners and lose control and regain control. And this is I believe a school in Colorado. Let's see if I think I put it. Did I? Yeah. No, I don't have it. I thought that I had it all prompted up. Well, anyways, New Hampshire has 3 of them, and they're mostly up north, none around the seacoast area. So over near Londonderry, I believe is one, and then there's up near Franconia, and then there's one I think around Concord. But I don't know why I didn't load the winter weather school. All right. Stay with the vehicle. Most people freeze to death when they try to walk and they get lost or they fall. No lie, I'll tell you a quick story. There was a woman that lived alone, and in the middle of a snowstorm, her mailbox was across the street. And she basically walked across the street to get her mail in the middle of the snowstorm, and she slipped and she fell, and she broke her hip. But because she lived alone, nobody knew that she was out there. And the snow kept on coming down, and this was a very rural area. And I think we got about, 8 to 10 inches. Well, anyways, they did not find her body for about 3 days. What had happened is that the plow had come by, and they had pushed her body about 100, 150 feet up the road. She was frozen into the snowbank up the road. And it was all because she went out to get her mail. So how does that tie into what we're talking about? Is that when you're walking in an active snowstorm and people can't see well out of their vehicle, they may hit you and think that they hit a block of ice or something, or a snowbank. They may not even realize that they hit a person, and they're going to be driving off. They're not going to be helping you out. So be careful. Face traffic. And try to carry a light. That's really important in winter weather. People may see a light through the snow. If your vehicle has no mechanical power, put a red flag to show that it's disabled. We talked about that last night. Now, when it talks about keeping passengers warm with blankets, until help comes, but we're also talking about running out of gas, meaning that it's good to keep your car running, staying warm, but if your car can't be seen from the side of the road because you went up over a snowbank, if you've got blankets to keep people warm, you're not going to be going through all of your gasoline. So what you want to do is to warm up the car, turn it off for a little bit. warm up the car, turn it off. So kind of go back and forth, back and forth. But if you are running the engine, make sure that the window is cracked a little bit, because we talked about the carbon monoxide being a problem. We talked about cell phones, being fully charged. Hopefully it's got GPS, so they'll be able to track you down. We didn't talk about this last night, so I want to kind of get into it right now. I want you to write down a few things about being stuck or breaking down, because we're going to talk about this with insurance. So I think this is important, so I want you to write this down. Number one, we talked about putting your flashes on. That's going to call attention to your vehicle, so they're going to come to try to help you out. Now, your car is stuck in snow. Yes, you need help. But this is what I want you to write down. Make sure if someone is helping you that you have taken a picture. Take out your phone, and as they come, okay, videotape what you're doing, what you're saying, who's at the window, who's talking to you. Maybe if they pull up, just put your phone like this and videotape the car that pulled up behind you. Make sure that you get an image of their car and the license plate. There are people that will take advantage of people on the side of the road when they're broken down or stuck, and bad things can happen. Shot, killed, injured, raped, you name it. And they're looking for people. They're looking for information. Put it on your phone. Put it right on your dash, okay? And even if you're not going to videotape, record it. Oh, hi, thanks for helping me out. My name's Kevin. What's your name? Who knows? Maybe they'll tell you their real name, maybe not. But at least you got an audio, you got a video. Probably video is better, but that's really important. If people are coming to help you when you're all by yourself. If you got other people with you and feel pretty cool about it, then don't freak out. But that's the parent in me. Now, fog, they say, is bad weather. It's more of a vision problem than traction problem. So make sure that you realize that. So the speed is only going to be brought down because of what you can't see. So make sure your headlights are on low, not on high. High beams will reflect the light back at you. And always look to the right edge of the road at the white line. You're going to be driving your vehicle right of center. Don't get too close to the yellow line. Okay, you want to be way over to the right. Be careful when you see other cars. They could be out of their lane. Maybe oncoming vehicles are coming at you too. So be very careful about what you're looking at and the distance that you have to react to whatever they're doing. So be ready for quick stops. Keep within your vision. If it's super heavy fog, just pull over. Use your emergency flashers. And fog basically comes and goes. It lifts and then it drops. So it's really not that bad. Let me show you an article. This is something I got from USA Today. Isn't that weird? That there's a guy on top of a car looking inside of his vehicle. If you look at the furthest, and this was in November of 2002. So this was probably before you guys were even born. That's crazy. If you look at the right-hand column, 194 vehicles were involved, including 7 or 8 big rig trucks. 41 people were injured, 9 of them critical. So we don't know if they made it or not. That's a shame. Visibility was down to 50 feet, so they could not see. That's the heavy fog that I was talking about. It happened around 7 in the morning, and they were driving about 25 to 35 miles per hour. I'll tell you right now, statistically, if you're driving at that speed, 25 to 35 miles per hour, you need 55 to 60 feet to stop a vehicle. They could only see 50 feet. There was 10 to 5 feet that wasn't accounted for. You know where that 5 or 10 feet actually is? It's on top of the vehicle that is stopped in front of you. This is why there are so many cars smashed on top of each other, is because they didn't have proper following distance at the proper speed. Because most people driving at 25, 35 miles per hour on a roadway that probably, Literally, everyone is accustomed to driving 65, 70, seems like pokey slow. And it seems very slow until you need to stop, and then you find out you don't have that distance that you really need. So in your head, you have to know what you're capable of doing and stopping in bad weather, and fog is no exception to that. The last thing I want you to write down about fog is that if you're on a highway, drive in the right lane. Don't get caught if you've got 4 lanes. Don't get caught in the other lanes, because if anything bad happens, you still have the breakdown lane to travel in. You see cars bumping and banging into one another. Everybody else, they have no place to go. They're surrounded by cars to the left, to the right, behind. But if you're in the right lane, you always have that right side of the road still free for you to get off and to continue to travel, or to stop if it gets real bad. Let me show you a thing about how bad fog can actually be.
Fog is considered the most dangerous of all driving hazards. The best advice for driving in fog is don't. It's simply hard to see what's around you. If you must drive, then slow down and turn on your low beam headlights. The low beams help you to see and help others to see you. Driving instructor Zandrea Baldwin emphasizes to use low beams, not high beams.
If you have your high beams on, the glare is going to come back toward you from the fog. The fog is pretty much like a light, and if your light is shining against the fog, it's going to glare back into your windshield, and it could actually cause temporary blindness.
Because of the reduced visibility, it's vitally important to slow down and stay slowed down. Also, use the right edge of the road as a guide rather than the center line. This can help you to avoid running into oncoming traffic or from becoming distracted by oncoming headlights. And don't be too proud to ask for help.
Get your passengers involved. Have the passengers help you out, checking blind spots and things of that nature for you.
If the fog gets really thick, signal and pull off the road to a protected area. Then wait for the fog to let up. While pulled over, turn on your emergency flashers to make your car more visible to others. A final note, whatever you do, don't stop in the middle of the roadway, no matter how thick the fog is. That almost guarantees that someone will hit you from behind. Again, it's best not to drive in the fog at all. If you have to, stay alert. I'm Katina McHenry.
So those are good tips to follow for driving in the fog. Let's talk about types of weather that you may not encounter here in New England, but you may encounter in another part of the country. High winds could happen around here. We do get like tropical storms every once in a while, but the problem isn't really for you. It's dealing with the large vehicles that are driving on open roadways. So write down your notes. High winds probably would start around 90 to 120 miles per hour wind gust, and it's not a problem for vehicles. It's a problem for larger vehicles where they tip over or they lose, they start to slide, skid into your lane. So these are all tractor trailers that had a problem with wind. Isn't that incredible that it can actually turn over a large truck? Look at that, right on a police car. So most of these are open areas like bridges, because you got the air circulation above the bridge, below the bridge. Maybe, you know, the long prairies of the West Coast. Here's another bridge. See, be careful when you go side by side with these vehicles going over a bridge.
What happened?
So that gives you some idea about high winds. Another type of bad weather, now this is not a traction problem, this is a vision problem, is the sandstorm. Now, sand is going to kick up like in a tornado type of situation. It almost is like fog. Now, this video, I think, is only like 3 minutes long, but you'd be surprised from the time that I click it on and we get movement, how it goes from light to how dark it actually gets. So watch this. These conditions don't last too long, but you could take a look at this video is less than 2 minutes long. We're exactly 1 minute into the video. And look how the camera can't pick up. See, it's getting so dark that it's not keeping focus any longer. So in a situation like this, you probably should pull to a parking lot and just wait for things to get a little bit better. A sandstorm does not last long. It's a lot like fog. You can see the intensity of the brake lights, and they're staying back a good distance. And the other thing too is that sand will maybe leave some marks on your windshield and your paint. It's probably not the best. And then the last type of weather that I want you to write down that you may not ever get a chance to experience, although we did have it yesterday in Biddeford, Maine. Okay, it didn't happen in New Hampshire that I know of, but Biddeford is only a half hour away, okay, or a little bit over a half hour away from where we are, and they did have this size hail. So wait till you see what hail will do to your vehicle.
Oh, and there's that beautiful wall cloud right in front of us. That we're getting baseball-sized hail. Oh my gosh, bigger than baseball. Woo! Woo! We're getting close to grapefruits over here. And I got it on camera. Oh my gosh, we've got softball-sized hail going on. And I just got, yep, I'm okay. I just got glass all over me. We got to get out of this. Yep, that just happened.
How do you ever get out of it?
We don't just keep driving. That's all we can do. I have glass all over me.
Don't move, don't move.
If I'm gonna, oh my gosh. Yep, got that one too. Can we find a place to pull under?
I'm trying to. All the trees can work.
Oh my gosh, this is the biggest hail I've ever seen. Oh, and it's, I'm covered in glass. This,
what do you want me to do?
There's nothing you can do, man. Pull up beside that building. We've lost our windshield. This is 5 to 6 inch size hail. I mean, it's bigger than softballs and grapefruits. I've never seen this big a hail in my life. Incredible. I've never seen hail this big.
You better hope that you have good car insurance, because if you don't have natural disasters like hail listed, then your insurance company's not going to pay for that damage. And that window was totally obliterated. So what do? Where are you supposed to go? Any place that has coverage. Go to a gas station. Go to an underpass over a bridge. Go underneath a tree. If we were to go back and look at the video, he could have gone on the left side of the road, done like a U-turn, and there was a tree that was somewhat close by, but it comes down so quickly that it is going to put marks on the car, but you just don't want it to smash through the windshield where you really can't see. You got to be careful about driving in those bad situations. So let's talk about the most common type of bad weather that we get to drive in, and some of you, I don't know if anybody from this class drove with me this week when we had rain, but rain happens in all 12 months, okay? It even rains in January and February if it gets warm enough. So remember that rain is a visibility problem more than it is a traction. Now, could you have a traction problem with rain? Sure. So write down, anytime I have water that's deeper than my tread depth, hydroplaning may occur. Normally, the way the roads are built, like we talked about, banked or crowned, and good tires, properly inflated, lower speeds, you will not hydroplane. I can't remember the last time that I was with a student. Now, we can go through a puddle that's pretty deep, and the car is going to pull because we're going through deep water, but we haven't really hydroplaned in the driver's ed car. I just don't remember a time. And I want you to write down for the final that when rain starts in the summertime to come down, it's very slippery the first half hour. It's because oil and gasoline and anything that's fluid drips off your vehicle, especially at stop lines, traffic lights, parking lots, parking spots. So when you're going into these areas and you're hitting one of these pockets of oil or gas or whatever, and water mixes with it, it is going to create a little bit of a film on the pavement, and your car could slide a little bit, a few inches up to a foot or something. So be very careful with your parking and getting too close to other cars. Here it also talks about in the fall, wet leaves that pile up can be slippery as ice because you're grabbing the top layer level of leaves. The leaves on the bottom are still grabbing hold of the pavement, and you're pushing that middle portion, and you're just sliding. Now, New Hampshire does not have a law that you must have your headlights on. I think it's a good idea. Every time that you drive in the driver's ed vehicle, we have our auto lights on. Comes on automatically because we have it on the auto mechanism. Maine, write down, is a state, I believe Massachusetts is too, that, write this down, if your wipers are being used, your wipers have to be on. I have a friend that from high school that didn't have any type of motor vehicle violations, and he works in Maine. He got pulled over one day because it was misty, and the mist on the windshield was just making it a little messy, so he had his wipers going every once in a while. And the state trooper in Maine pulled him over, gave him a $132 ticket for not having his headlights on. Had a clean record up to that point and gave him a ticket. To me, that warranted a warning and not a full-fledged ticket. But that's a lot of money to learn a lesson. So read your signs when you go into another state. Just know some of these safety practices because there are implications for tickets. Should always signal and brake well ahead. And do you know the difference between a pothole and a puddle? This is not in the textbook. This is not in the manual. This is going to hopefully give you some information about what to do when you encounter these situations. So I want you to write this down. So I'm going to get out of here for a second and go to my whiteboard. And let me draw a puddle and a pothole. So let me clean this up. Let's get the marker. So you're driving down the road. Okay. You're more than likely going to see puddles off to the right because that's where water drains. Puddles are going to be nondescript. It's not going to be too circular. Now, potholes are more circular in nature, and you're going to see broken pieces of pavement around the hole. Now, water will still be in the pothole, and it's usually, potholes are more likely to be off near the right side of the road because of water draining over here. And each time someone hits this hole, they break pieces of pavement away from it. That's why you know it's a pothole, not a puddle. So like I said, this it has, you know, a curve to it, and it will always be the deepest at its widest point. So this vehicle should try to avoid the puddle and also try to avoid the pothole. If you can't avoid the pothole, try to straddle it. Try to have it go underneath the car and not exactly right on the right side where it's going to hit the tire or what. And potholes can actually cause a blowout. We talked about that yesterday with driving emergencies, so just be aware of that. That you think, oh, what's the big deal? Yeah, hit it real hard and find out you're changing a tire now in bad weather. Not the best thing. Here's a car that you just can't see. You can see a bunch of cars with headlights on, but there's one that's just being hidden. Okay, that's why it's so important to make sure that you have your headlights on. So let's talk about rain. Let's talk about hydroplaning. Actually, let me get through the PowerPoints here. So write this down. Hydroplaning, the definition is your tires are riding on top of the water. Yes, the heavy vehicle will float or ride up on water. I tell people hydroplaning is a lot like skimming a rock on a lake. Have you ever done that before, where it hits the water, lifts up, comes back down, lifts up, comes back down? That's basically what your tires are doing with water on the pavement. It just keeps on going in and out. And it only usually begins around 35 miles per hour. So you're pretty safe if you're driving around 20, 25 miles per hour. Likelihood of hydroplaning pretty slim. And you're more apt to see water, standing water on back roads than on main travel portion road, route number roads like 108, 202, 155, the Spalding Turnpike, is because we built these roads for the water to be drained off to the side. And when you're hydroplaning, it's important to understand that you cannot brake, you cannot accelerate, you cannot steer. So try to keep the steering wheel held straight, because the next time you hit pavement, that's where your car is going to go. So don't start going funky with turning the steering wheel. Oh my goodness, why is the car moving? I'm moving the steering wheel. Well, the minute you grip the road, it will now go in the direction that your hands are making the car turn. And the same thing with accelerating. It's not going to go faster. It's not going to go slower. Can't brake. You got to wait till you're back on the pavement. So when we do have heavy rain, always go slow. Probably cut it in half. Almost like what we would do with ice. And then be careful around standing water. Like I said, it was bad. We had some real bad flooding in some parts of the state. And remember, any flooding that's higher than your floorboard will make the car start to float. You'll actually get lifted up and carried down. Know when your tires should be replaced. This is why we make, checks around the vehicle. Get a look around. Make sure that everything is okay for the upcoming month. Do it on a monthly basis. Keep your tires properly inflated. When you're going on a roadway, keep your speed steady with good following distance, and take off your foot off the accelerator when you think there's a chance that you're going to hydroplane or lose contact. So let's take a look at, here's a clip of hydroplaning. Okay, those are some of the things that we talked about. Okay, so the audio's not working, possibly. All right, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about night driving and fatigue at the beginning of tomorrow's class, even though we're going to do alcohol for the most part. So make sure that you do your reading. That's on your course outline. So that's chapter 18 that I want you to read. But I'm going to go to Facebook and I'm going to put down a chapter test for light weather conditions. So I want you to go to Facebook after I sign off and do the questions. They're a little bit more involved than what you had for questions at the end of 13. So go to Facebook and do the worksheet for the remainder for tonight's class. And we'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and we're going to do 2 classes. So tomorrow's class mainly will be alcohol, the physical aspects of how it affects the body and with driving. And then on Monday, we'll talk about penalties, the consequences, what to expect if you have problems with drugs and alcohol and driving a vehicle. So it's a pretty involved subject. So go to Facebook and pick up your homework for tonight. See you tomorrow.